as a token of our appreciation, you get the very first official hoodie. They actually came off the press this morning.
Awesome.
And they are available for sale at the happy hour tonight, but you get the very first one.
I'm an honorary criminal defense attorney then. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. All right, we're ready to move on to the awards part of the presentation. The first award, first of our annual awards that we're going to give out at this point is the Clarence Darrow Award. If I have to explain who Clarence Darrow is to this group, well, folks, it's time to go back to law school. So I'm not going to read that part here. What I am going to do is I'm going to briefly read what the award recognizes and then introduce the person who nominated our winners. The award recognizes the efforts of an individual who has, during the year, exemplified the zealous criminal defense advocacy that befits the namesake of the award, Clarence Darrow. It is in the deeds and spirit of Clarence Darrow that this award is given each year for the zealous criminal defense advocacy by an individual attorney. The only qualification requirement is that the events upon which the nomination is based must have taken place during the current year. This year's award is actually given out to two recipients, Richard and Sharice O'Carroll, for their efforts in the Murphy case. And I'm going to, at this point, introduce Scott Troy, who nominated them for the award. Troy.
Thank you very much. I was instructed yesterday by Mike to be really, really brief, so I only have a few comments to make here. This particular award, I cannot think of two people who deserve it more. The work that I have seen done by Richard and Sharice over the past 4 years, and they have been working on this case for 4 years, to me exemplifies what I certainly ascribe to be in the practice of law, and I know the other lawyers in this room, the great lawyers in this room, ascribe to be. Just a little bit of, I know this award relates only to what they've done for this year, but there's a little bit of background you need to know about these folks. I started working with Richard in the Public Defender's Office in 1986, and it's safe to say he was universally disliked in the DA's office from the very moment he walked in. And rather set the standard of telling the prosecution what they can do with their case. And Sharice followed shortly thereafter, and she was the best intern I ever had, and certainly the best looking. In looking at and doing a little bit of research on them, it was stunning to me to learn that they have represented 19 people charged with capital murder. Not one has ever seen death row. And I tell you, that in and of itself is that is a phenomenal accomplishment, an absolutely phenomenal accomplishment. For those of you who may not know Richard Sharice, they've been practicing in Tulsa for a long time. Sharice is the recipient of the 2010 Tulsa County Bar Association Golden Brule Professional Award. She's been a featured speaker on continuing legal education in London, England. Writes the absolute best briefs I think I've ever read, that Richard, of course, takes credit for. Unabashedly, I might say. But throughout what they have done in this case with Michelle Murphy, I was privy to many meetings, lunches with Richard and discussions about this case, and listening to what Sharice went through, what Richard went through, was really a process of agony and frustration. And you had a district attorney's office that at every single turn was obfuscatious, half-truths, outright lies, evidence that was not true, blood evidence that was subsequently proven by them to be false or so specious as to be not worthy of consideration. And at every single turn, at every single roadblock in this case, the one thing that they did and kept doing was they just pushed that much harder. And it was that much more work for the state, that much more problem for the state, and they couldn't handle it. And ultimately, when Tim Harris got a subpoena from Richard and Sharice O'Carroll, to come in and testify and say, why don't you explain this to us? The case got dismissed. And on that date, Miss Murphy was given the greatest gift, I suppose, a wrongly convicted person can get, a finding of actual innocence. And it's wonderful to see you here today breathing innocent air. Relax, I only got about 20 more minutes.
There is the trap door.
All right. You won. I can honestly say, ladies and gentlemen, in this very esteemed company, that over the years I have had the privilege of being involved in some cases with Richard and Sharice, and I have never seen two more people more dedicated to their client and to justice and ultimately freedom. So when I think about Richard and Sharice, the one word that pops into my mind is freedom. And it is with tremendous pride and admiration that I'll introduce the 2014 Clarence Darrow Award winners, Richard and Sharice O'Carroll. Oh yeah! look at all that I didn't get to use.
Always keep good notes.
Thank you. I'm humbled and I'm pleased for Michelle. I'm pleased for Tim Durham. I'm pleased for Cedric Courtney. And I worry about Mr. Bauhaus in 1977, who I could do nothing for. I'm worried about Mr. Tommy Glass, who in 1986, and we all know the Glass case because it's the guy that was supposedly stole the car to burglarize the house, et cetera, et cetera. It goes to Joinder. And I'm worried about all the other people that I've had association with the Innocence Project, and I couldn't find the evidence. But there are some trademarks to innocence that I've developed over the years. And one is nearly all of them try to escape. And Michelle was arrested for attempted escape. Mr. Bauhaus, who we could do nothing for, actually was at large for 11 years, and when they caught him, they tried to prosecute the escape, and they gave him subpoena power, and his defense was actual innocence, and they dismissed the escape so he wouldn't be subpoenaing people to prove it. Mr. Tommy Glass, back in Comanche County, where Judge Lyle was then a district court judge, before he got run off the Court of Criminal Appeals, and we all remember his decisions. The prosecutor in that particular case destroyed the rape kit before sentencing. And I was cross-examining him about this premature destruction of evidence, and Judge Lyle summoned me up and held me in contempt because I was being redundant. And I stood there, didn't say a word, went back and moved over just a little bit and asked the next question. His contempt didn't stick. I'm truly honored. Pardon me. And I want to thank Pete Silva for not firing me on the elevator coming down from my first jury trial. I want to thank John Eccles for making me such a better lawyer following him. I want to thank Jack Gordon for always being a friend. And in trying times, he was the only guy in the back of the room. I want to thank Paul for pulling me out of fact 3 or 4 times, because every aggressive lawyer needs good lawyers. And most importantly, I want to thank Sharice, because when you're working without a net and you're out there on the wire, you gotta have a person with solid ideas, to a person who has confidence in you and makes you feel confident. But most importantly, you've got to have somebody trained in ethical law so you know where the line is and you can push the envelope without making yourself vulnerable. I'm truly humbled, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I learned everything I know from being Scott Troy's intern and Richard O'Carroll's intern. So that's how I learned to practice law. And I want to thank my intern who's here today because I couldn't have done this by myself. Katie Arnold, best intern ever. No, you cannot have her. She is mine. And my investigator, Megan Cullum. Megan found all of the facts and we were able to put it together. I got this case 4.5 years ago. And when I went to the warehouse to get the transcripts, the file was missing. And that immediately piqued my interest. So I knew right then I was going to take this case no matter what. I read the transcripts. I saw the AB blood argument that Tim Harris made in closing, and I knew it didn't make sense. Curtis Parks, may he rest in peace, asked me before he died, please get Michelle Murphy out of prison because she's the only client I've ever had that I knew was innocent. And I promised him I would, so I guess I did it for Curtis. And that's the most important thing with the criminal defense bar. We're all in this together. And the prosecutorial misconduct in this case is probably beyond belief, would you say?
Yes.
Unfortunately, it might be going on in every case and we just don't know. I think that it can't just be an aberration. But if anybody ever wants to discuss what went on in this case, I'll be more than happy to. My favorite quote, though, that Ziva got out of Tim Harris, thank you, Ziva. I liked the one where he said people have 2 blood types. That was a good one. But he told Ziva that had Miss Murphy been covered in her baby's blood, he would have considered her innocent because she would have bent over and picked up her dead baby and been covered in the baby's blood. But because she had no blood on her body or clothes, she must have been guilty. That was my favorite quote from our prosecutor, Tim Harris. So they will just bend and twist the facts as they want, and you just always need to remember that that's what's going on. Things are not as they seem. And thank you all for fighting the good fight. This is the good side. So God bless.
The next award that we have to give out is the Lord Thomas Erskine Award. I'm not going to bore you again by reading who Lord Erskine was. Just going to note that the award is given to honor a member of the criminal defense bar who has over the years steadfastly placed the preservation of personal liberties over his or her own personal gain or reputation. The award is a cumulative year award and is not limited to any particular activities in any particular year. Essentially, to quote, I believe, one of our award recipients in past years, this is the one we give to the old farts who have been around long enough to earn a career award. Our old fart this year is John W. Coyle III. And I'm going to introduce Mac Martin, who nominated him for that award at this time, and I'm going to ask him to make a few brief remarks.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. I too, mine's single space. It's an honor to be here, mainly because John has been my hero for years and years. John has been practicing law for close to 40 years, if not 40 years. I've been practicing law for probably 35 years, and I've known John ever since then. I first became closely involved with John about 25 years ago when we didn't share offices, but I moved to an office right next door to John, and anytime I had a problem, an issue, or anything that I was concerned about, I knew I could go down the hall and talk to John, and if he didn't have the answer, he would find who did have the answer for you. You could always rely on John for that. John has had an unbelievable, amazing career of protecting the constitutional rights of his clients, being there for them again and again and again. He has tried hundreds of cases over his career. In this nominating letter, I'm not going to read the letter. I think it's like 8 pages long. I have cited probably close to 35 jury trials where virtually every one of them ended either in a directed verdict of acquittal or a not guilty by the jury, which is something that you know, in 5 lifetimes many of us could never accomplish. John has just done an unbelievable job. I'm sitting here looking. I think I actually numbered them. I actually went through, I think, 33 jury trials that John was involved in. Not only has he done that, but back in, I think it was sometime in the 90s, John won the Clarence Darrow Award, an honor, as we've just seen, that is an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. And, you know, for that, he's an outstanding individual. He's also won, in Oklahoma County, we have an award we call the Barry Albert Award. John was awarded that years ago, too, because of his outstanding criminal defense work. I like to characterize John as a consummate lawyer's lawyer. Before I was going to speak, I saw John this morning. I said, John, is there anything you would like me to say to tell the group about you? And John said, tell them I'm younger than I am. and you know, the problem with that is there's truth to that, and I'll tell you why. John's enthusiasm is unbelievable. There's a story about a little kid they put in a room, 2 kids in a room. In one room is a kid in a room full of toys, and after about an hour, they bring the kid out of the room, and he's whining and he's crying, and they say, what are you upset about? And he said, well, one of the 200 toys in the room is broken and it's not working, and so he's upset about it. They take the other kid, the John Cole kid, and they put him in a room full of manure, horse manure. 2 hours later, they pull him out of there, and he's got a big smile on his face, and he's got horse manure all over him, and they said, what are you so excited about? And John goes, with all this horse manure in here, there's got to be a horse somewhere. That's the kind of guy John Cole is. He's always looking for the bright side of a criminal case. We have a personal experience of a case he and I had 3 or 4 years ago where I observed that. He and I and several other lawyers went over to the United States Attorney's Office, and the smart lawyers in the group had put together a video presentation for the Assistant United States Attorney, some of the other people involved in it, for the FBI, for the IRS, to convince them that our clients weren't guilty of these horrific tax and money laundering allegations they made. Kind of an impressive presentation with videos and everything, and needless to say, by the end of the probably 2-hour presentation, we were pretty much shown the door and laughed out of the room. And as we're walking back from the United States Attorney's Office across the street to our offices, John and I office there in the same building, and we see each other every day, many times a day. I'm walking back, my head's down, I'm dragging my feet, and all the other lawyers are walking back, just kind of, you know, all down and depressed about the whole thing. Behind me, I hear John Coyle. He's got that unique voice that you all know, and I hear John leaning over and he goes, "Well, we got him on the run now, don't we?" That is the kind of person that John is. He's young, he's enthusiastic, and he's never going to grow old. To make this presentation today, I want to call up here Billy, his son, because Billy's known him forever, and Billy's going to actually make the presentation for me. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mac. I just want to say a few words. I want to read something. I want to read a little bit of the letters that were written because I think it represents who my father is. Not only does John fight to protect his clients, he is and has always been there for other lawyers like myself, who at moment's notice need someone to use as a soundboard to deal with difficult or unusual circumstances. John has never hesitated to offer help or assistance to any lawyer in need. Mac Martin. The other letters that were written was by David McKenzie. David McKenzie wrote a letter on behalf of my father also. He says, John has represented many unpopular clients over his career and does so with zealousness and a total disregard for his personal gain or reputation. John Coyle is driven by his passion for the law, his great humanity, and his desire to help. Greed plays absolutely no role in John's practice. Courage is his hallmark. He has offered nothing but quality representation for his entire remarkable career. Also, many people know Jim Hankins. Jim wrote a great recommendation letter. He says, from my own experience, I know that John handles criminal cases the right way by devoting the time and resources to develop the facts, drafting and filing motions, attacking the government's position, and not backing down 1 inch in court when his client's liberty is on the line. You know, last December, my father became ill, and he had open heart surgery. It was December that he had open heart surgery. He returned to work 3 weeks later. They said he couldn't try a case in June, so in July, he tried a federal court bribery case up here in Muskogee and got a not guilty. And I tried to think, you know, why does my father do so well? It is because, and I've tried at least 10, maybe 15 cases with him, and I'm always at awe. When any criminal case you try, there's going to be a point as a criminal lawyer that if that case was decided at that point, you could lose. Because you're fighting against the government. They always are going to win a trial at a certain point. But it's the point that you never back down. You never give up. And you know at the end of the day you will win, is why my father has achieved such great success, I believe. I really believe that this is a great award, and the fact that it's a lifetime achievement, make no doubt about it. My dad is not done yet. There is nobody that works harder when he puts his mind to it. And it is not the easy cases that he likes. It's the ones that are so hard that nobody wants that he will work tirelessly over. That he will stay and work, and he'll work his entire team to. I mean, the lawyers in his office will testify that nobody will work harder than my dad. So it's not an award that's just given. It's an award that was hard work for by a career that every lawyer that I know truly, truly respects you. And from your family, we love you with all our hearts. Congratulations.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you, Matt Martin. You know, I feel so blessed to be up here. I saw all the great lawyers that have won this award. I read about Lord Erskine the other night, and wow, what a guy. I mean, he represented people no matter